Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to share with you guys my 37-week pregnancy update. I just want to apologize ahead of time if I am not acting like my normal self. I am just worn out and mentally and physically exhausted today of all days, but I wanted to sit down and film everything while it was fresh in my mind, so that is why I am doing it today. I am 37 weeks and 3 days. So when you guys are seeing this, I'll be a little bit further along, but I just got home from the hospital because I was having a lot of pain where my C-section, like my past C-section incision was, and so I had to go into the hospital. So before I get into all of that, I'm going to talk about some of the symptoms that I have been having since my last update. I did have a doctor's appointment the day before I hit 37 weeks, and I think I weighed 155, so I think I gained maybe a pound or not, and I don't know. I'm not really keeping track of it anymore. Like, that is the least of my worries, especially today, like especially now. But yes, I didn't have like a big weight gain, so that was nothing to be worried about. I talked about in my last video how they told me I had a bacterial infection. I did get on medication for that, and it was a week prescription, a 1 week, not a week, but you know, like I took it for 7 days. And when I went into the doctor, they asked me if I had finished it, which I had completed all of the pills, and then they obviously retested me and I didn't have an infection anymore. So that is really, really good. During that appointment, I kind of talked about how I was having more pains in my side, and they told me it was just round ligament pain, that it was normal, so I just, whatever, like I'm just going with it. I left that appointment and they told me the only thing I need to do, like really to prepare for this baby, is to go register at the hospital, which I had tried to do that online. I think I mentioned it, but I guess it didn't work. Obviously it didn't work because today when I went into the hospital, they couldn't find any of my records or anything like that. So I had to register today when I went, which is no big deal. I would have had to fill out paperwork regardless, so I got that out of the way, so when I do actually get to go in for my C-section, I won't have to fill out any of the like unnecessary paperwork other than like signing your life away in case something happens to you during surgery. So the last week I've been having super bad heartburn, super bad like back, like tailbone pain. I'm pretty sure it's my sciatic nerve. I had it really bad with all of my pregnancies, and I had a lot of back pain towards the beginning of my pregnancy, and then we got a new mattress and it kind of seemed to alleviate a lot of my like back discomfort. I mean, my back would still hurt sometimes, but I wasn't waking up in the morning like in severe pain like I had been at the beginning of my pregnancy. So I think it was my mattress that was kind of causing my back pain. This past week, I think baby has kind of dropped a little bit, well, a lot of it, and he's just gotten a lot bigger. Like my belly has just grown so much. I have a lot of new stretch marks, which I don't know how I continue to get stretch marks with each kid, knowing that this is not the biggest I've been. Like I have been a lot bigger in a past pregnancy when I got most of my stretch marks, but I think my body, I'm just prone to stretch marks. So no matter how big or how small I get, I'm going to get more. My back pain has been so bad that even when I'm just like walking around the house or walking to the car or walking to the grocery store, like my back is just hurting so bad, and I think it is because he's dropped. I've been feeling a lot of like pressure in my cervix. I think that's what it is, my cervix, I don't know. Like a lot of pressure where it almost feels like he's just going to fall out, which I've never experienced that with any of my pregnancies. So I don't know if it's because he's just really big in there. I don't know if it's because every pregnancy is different. None of my maternity pants are fitting me comfortably anymore. Like they don't even pull up high enough to like sit right. They kind of are following like mid-belly, so it's just not like a cute look. So I basically have been living in dresses or just pajamas. I really have not been leaving the house that much other than to take the kids to school, pick up the kids from school, and then like sports. That is the only time I've really been leaving the house because it's just hard for me to do a lot of things on my own with a lot of kids. So I have just been living in very, very comfortable pants and my husband's t-shirts because that is all that really fits me and that's all I really feel comfortable in. I've hit that stage in pregnancy where just even if my pants did go up like to where they should, like even if I went to the store and got a bigger pair just to fit my belly, I just don't think that that would be comfortable because he's just so big in there and I don't like having like that much pressure on my stomach. So I think that he is going to be a big boy. I'm guessing that he's going to be closer to 9 pounds. That is my guess. I will be completely shocked if he's like a 7-pound baby because I just feel like he's so ginormous in there. I did pack my hospital bag this week and I filmed a video, so that's going to be coming up after this video, so stay tuned for that. This time around, I am not bringing 2 different bags for me and baby. Like in the past, I've always packed 1 bag for me, 1 bag for baby. This time around, I put everything in 1 bag just to make life easier. I am all about simplicity these days, so we are just bringing 1 bag. All of our stuff is in there, and I think we're gonna be good to go with that. Like I said, that video is coming up after this one, so stay tuned for that. Now getting into my hospital visit today. So yesterday, last night, I have been feeling a lot of pressure. I've been having a lot of contractions. Some of them have been Braxton Hicks, some feel more like a legitimate contraction, but they're never like consistent. So it's nothing to be alarmed about, nothing to have to go to the hospital for, none of that. But last night when I was taking a shower, I started having this very sharp pain on my right side where my incision is from my past C-section. Not on the outside, it was a little bit tender on the outside, but more on the inside. And obviously, because I have had past C-sections and like multiple C-sections, you always hear about like uterine rupture, or you don't always hear about it, but you have heard of uterine rupture. That's why a lot of doctors don't want to do VBACs because they're scared that you might tear open your incision and all of these things. And when you Google it, they say that it's like a very slim chance. The doctors always tell you it's a very slim chance. In my experience with like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, I have known women whose uterus has ruptured because they have had a past C-section, and it's a very scary thing. So I don't know why a lot of these doctors say it's like not common. I think they say that to try to not scare you, but I think it is more common than they lead you to believe. That being said, I got out of the shower and I told my husband that I was having this pain, and he kind of told me that it wasn't a big deal because my husband, it's kind of funny. He is the world's biggest baby. Like, he will just hit his toe and like the world will come to an end. But when it comes to anybody else, he's like, oh, you're fine. Like, you're fine. The kids will hurt themselves. He'll be like, you're fine. So he kind of didn't make a big deal about it. And I started to worry because the baby wasn't moving and he's super active at night. So I was like freaking myself out. So I stayed up very late. I think I stayed up till like 11 o'clock until I felt the baby move like multiple times. So once I felt him move, my pain was still there, and like I said, it was only in like a small section of my right side, and it didn't really hurt when I was just sitting down like not moving, but when he moved or if I moved, it started to hurt. So I decided to just sleep it off. I went to bed. I don't feel comfortable like just going into the hospital and being admitted and them saying you need to have a C-section and my doctor not doing it, because as much as I dislike a lot of the things my doctor doesn't pay attention to, he does really good C-section. Like, he has done an amazing job with all of my C-sections. So I don't want to like just jump in the car and go to the hospital and have like a random on-call doctor just do a C-section because I don't feel comfortable with that. So I decided to wait until this morning, and I started calling my doctor's office at 8:30 because that's when they open, and nobody picked up the phone until 9:30. Like, I was calling for an hour and I kept getting on call doctors, and they're like, your doctor's office should be open. So I don't know if they just forgot to turn on their phone lines, or if whoever answered the phones just didn't show up to work, so there was no one to answer the phone. But nobody picked up until 9:30, and my doctor actually wasn't there. He was in an emergency C-section at the time. So I talked to the nurse practitioner, and she said if I'm in any pain or having contractions, which I was not having contractions, she told me that I just need to go to the hospital. So I called my husband and my dad because my mom and my sister are out of town right now, and my dad lives about 45 minutes away. So he got in the car to come meet me at the hospital to get Reagan because the older kids were already at school. And I called Juan. He was working relatively close to the hospital, so he met me there, and they hooked me up to the monitors, and they told me they were going to monitor me for about an hour, and then they were going to call the doctor. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm at the hospital. You guys are doing your jobs. Like, you know what you're doing. So I was there for about an hour, and I was watching his heart rate, and his heart rate seemed to be a little bit high to me, but obviously it wasn't high enough because they sent me home. But the whole time I was hooked up, he was in the 170s and 180s, which is not like super duper high, but it's high for like me and my babies. My kids tend to be in like the 130s to like 150s. So I don't know. But that is what his heart rate was at. I was having contractions, but like I could see him on the thing, but they were very small, like no like huge contractions. I wasn't even feeling most of them. It just felt like a Braxton Hicks. After about an hour, they came in, and it was a different nurse because they had like changed over, and she said that she was gonna check me, and I was like, I don't want to get checked. Because I told her, I was like, why do you need to check me? I'm having a C-section. Like, it doesn't really matter if I'm dilated or not. Like, I'm in pain. You're either going to send me home or you're going to do the C-section today. Like, why do you need to check me? And she's like, well, you are having some contractions, so we want to see if you're dilated. So I'm like, okay. She's like, it might feel a little bit pressure, but it's not going to be a big deal. And I'm like, okay, I have been checked before. So I knew like what was going to happen. And when she checked me, she took out her hand. TMI, I know, but this is what pregnancy is. And there was a lot of blood on her hand, like a good amount. I don't know what she did. Like, I have no idea what she did, but there was a lot of blood. And I have been checked at 37 weeks before, and there was a little bit of blood, like, later in the day. Like, when I went to the bathroom, I noticed, like, oh, there was a little bit of, like, spotting, like, just when I wiped from going to the bathroom, but it wasn't a lot of blood. When she pulled her hand out, there was, like, a good amount of blood. And then she gave me some stuff to like clean up, and there was a decent amount of blood when I was cleaning myself up. So I kind of started to get freaked out, and she told me that that was kind of not normal, but she was going to talk to the doctor about it. So my doctor was at a different hospital doing an emergency C-section, so I got an on-call doctor, and he came in and he said that they were going to draw some blood and make sure I didn't have an infection, to make sure that my uterus hadn't ruptured. So they put an IV, not an IV in, but they put like one of those things that they keep in your arm that if they need to hook up an IV to it, they can just have access to it. So they put that in, and she took a lot of blood. I think she took like 6 vials of blood. And she took those to get tested just to make sure that I didn't have an infection, because she said if my uterus had ruptured, it would show up in my blood that I had an infection. So I waited another hour. All the tests results came back like good on my blood. There was nothing wrong with my blood, and by that time my doctor had shown up at the hospital. So he came in and he said that he thinks it's just normal pain that I'm feeling, and it's just stretching, and that it's no big deal. I asked him about the blood and he said it was fine, that unless I'm having contractions he doesn't feel comfortable delivering me this early, which is kind of funny to me because he's delivered all of my babies, but my first, I was either 35 weeks and 6 days or 36 weeks and 1 day. It was 1 day either before or after my 36th week, and he delivered my baby, my oldest, and she was 7 pounds 4 ounces. She was a big baby and she needed no time in the NICU. So he was just kind of telling me like, oh, if we deliver you now, your baby's probably gonna have to spend time in the NICU. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I know that some babies might need to, like if it's an emergency C-section because of something that's going on, but I just kind of thought he didn't want to do the C-section today, which I am totally okay with not doing the C-section today because my biggest helpers are both out of town, my mom and my sister. So I don't think my dad could handle 3 kids like by himself for multiple days while they're out of town. So I didn't necessarily want to deliver today. That's not what my like frustration is. My frustration is like they didn't do an ultrasound, they didn't do anything. Like, what if something's going on and they're just not catching it? What if like my uterus is starting to separate and that's why I'm having the pain? Like, why when she checked me was there a lot of blood and them acting like it's no big deal? So I'm a little bit stressed out, a little bit like paranoid about the next few weeks. They did tell me that I need to be put on bed rest, so I just need to not pick up the kids, not be lifting anything heavy, not doing anything strenuous. So I have to start taking it easy these next couple days. I don't have that much longer. I have like exactly 2 weeks left. Like, I don't have a long time to go. I have like 14 days. But they did tell me if I start having contractions that I need to go in. And it was the nurse who told me like after my doctor left. And I'm like, well, how many minutes apart do they need to be? She's like, no, if you have like multiple contractions in an hour, you need to come in. It doesn't matter how far apart they are, because you're having a C-section, like you just need to come in. So I'm kind of left, I don't know, with no answers, and it's really frustrating, but I just have to trust. Like, my instincts tell me not to trust them, but I have to trust that they know what they're talking about, that they've experienced enough things to know what they're doing. So I am just going to listen to what they said. I'm just going to stay off my feet. Although it doesn't really matter, like I was in bed last night and I would just roll over and I would feel this like really sharp pain. So I have no idea what's going to happen. I have been home for about 2 hours since they checked me, and the bleeding has stopped. Not bleeding anymore. She told me if I start bleeding to head into the hospital. So I'm just really confused. Like, what is bleeding? I asked her, I was like, what is bleeding? She's like, well, if you fill up a pad. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I have time to like fill up a pad and then drive to the hospital, like there's something majorly wrong. Like, oh guys, I am so stressed out about this. And I think I'm more stressed out because this is my 4th like pregnancy. I've never felt this way before, and then you hear all these horror stories. So I don't know. Hopefully I can at least keep this baby in for another week until everyone comes back from their trips, and then he can come if he wants to. If not, I am totally fine waiting until the day of my C-section. Like, I have planned everything around that day. That day would work out actually really, really good. So I'm not worried about like, oh, I just want this baby out right now. I'm more worried like about him and just making sure that he's safe and I'm safe, and making sure that something isn't really wrong. So I think that's just where my frustration comes from. That is it for my hospital update. Hopefully I can just hold it together and not go back in, because I do not want to go back to the hospital for them just to send me home again, because it's a pain. Like, it's just a pain. I'm sorry if this video is a little bit longer than some of my other ones. I just wanted to explain to you guys kind of where I'm at and why I was in the hospital. Now that I look down at my hands, that is another symptom I have been having. I have been swelling so bad to the point where, like, when I touch my fingertips, especially at night and in the middle of the night, they feel so puffy, like that they hurt, and my feet have just been hurting so bad because they're so swollen. When I move them, they hurt. My lips are swollen, my nose is swollen, like my face is more swollen. So I haven't put on extra pounds, it's just the swelling. So I'm thinking a lot of it's water weight, and hopefully I get to lose it, you know, after baby comes. But I have been swelling. I think this is the worst I have swelled in like any of my pregnancies. So I did mention it to the doctor, and he just said it was normal. Like he says, everything is normal. So I haven't been having like headaches or protein in my urine or anything like that. So I don't think it's like preeclampsia or anything like that. I think I am just swelling because my body is just at that point where it's close to being done. Enough with my rambling. I will show you guys my 37.5-week pregnancy belly. Here is my 37-week pregnancy baby belly. Like, he is so big. I feel like I'm even filling out up here as well as down low, and that I feel like he has dropped a little bit. I feel like I'm more pointier and like lower because he's just cooking away in there, and I feel like he's getting ready to come out. But this is with the shirt up. He's like moving right now because I'm having a Braxton Hicks contraction, and he does not like when that happens. For my measurements this week, I am measuring still at 41.5. I feel like I was 41.5 last time, but that is where we are at this week. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you have missed any of my past pregnancy updates, they will be linked up above as well as down below. And stay tuned for my what's in my hospital bag, because that is going to be coming out as well this week. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.